Good evening and welcome to the San Bruno City Council meeting of August 22nd, 2017. Call to order, and I'd like to thank the San Bruno Flower Fashions of 665 San Mateo Avenue for our flowers this evening. Thank you very much. Very nice. Roll call, please, Vicki.
Councilmember Marty Medina.
Here.
Councilmember Rico Medina.
Here.
Councilmember O'Connell.
Here.
Vice Mayor Ibarra.
Here.
Mayor Ruane.
Here. Tammy, will you lead us in the pledge, please?
Flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We don't have any announcements this evening. We don't have any presentations this evening. Review of the agenda. Anything on the agenda? We're good? Okay. Approval of the minutes of the special and regular city council meetings of July 25th, 2017, and special council meeting of August 16th, 2017. Any errors, corrections, or omissions? Seeing none to be approved as submitted. The consent calendar, all items are considered routine or implement an earlier council action and may be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion unless requested. Anything on consent?
To the chair.
Ken?
I'd like to pull 7E as an elephant.
E as an echo. Okay, anything else?
That was mine as well.
Okay.
I would like to pull 7D
D.
and 7F, please.
D. Okay, and 7F. Okay. Action on the remainder?
Move to approve the remainder of the consent.
Second.
On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Item 7D is accept resignation from a member of the Community Preparedness Committee, Culture and Arts Commission, and a Planning Commissioner, declare vacancies and direct the city clerk to post the vacancies in accordance with state law. Marty?
Right, so I just basically wanted to acknowledge that the three people who served, and if staff could provide a little bit of information regarding the now vacant seats and the recruitment effort, if you may do so, please.
Thank you. As required by law, once you declare the vacancies, based on the resignation of some of our valued board and committee members, those vacancies are posted for a period of at least 10 days. During which the city clerk's office accepts applications from persons who might be interested in serving their community, and the city council subsequently will have the opportunity to evaluate those applications through an oral interview process and to make appointments at a subsequent meeting.
Okay.
Just wanted to acknowledge their names. Matt Lethin, from the Crime Prevention Committee, Carlos Gonzalez from the Culture and Arts Commission, and lastly but not least, Marie K.L. from the Planning Commission.
Thank you. Any action on item D?
Move to accept.
Second.
Motion second on item 7D and consent. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. Item E, receive a report on the status of local emergency related to the truck collision at the Senior Center and continuing declaration of local emergency. Ken or Rico?
I'd like staff to give a brief update on this, and then I also have a request after that.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. This is a very important and urgent issue for the community, as the senior center is much beloved and it is in very active use. So we were very disappointed on June 19th of this year to experience a truck accident during which the large portion of our stage area at the far end of this room was destroyed, requiring a fairly extensive repair and rehabilitation of the building before it can be used again for its full regular programming. As the City Council is aware, some of our programs, most notably our senior citizen lunch or nutrition program, has been relocated to other facilities. We are very grateful for the cooperation and participation, in particular by St. Robert's Church, in allowing the use of one of their larger buildings for the lunch program for a period of about a month and a half. Given the start of school, the program has now been relocated again over to the recreation center in City Park as an additional temporary move in order to continue that valuable and important program. With respect to the building reconstruction itself, we're very pleased to report that demolition of the stage area that was damaged in the accident has been completed, as has the remediation of the soil that environmental damage that occurred as a result of the truck accident. At this point, we are rapidly in the process of completing the plans, updating the original senior center building plans in order to comply with new building codes, and doing the necessary work to get a price quote from our contractor so that we can begin full actual reconstruction work as quickly as possible. One of the concerns that was expressed by the City Council at the last meeting, the last report that I provided, was the opportunity to use this room for some programs other than the lunch program that had been relocated, and most notably the bingo program that is operated here on Thursday nights by the not-for-profit that operates with a strong relationship to our senior services and our senior center programs. Bingo will happen again beginning on September 7th here in this room in the space we are currently occupying. So unfortunately, while the capacity will be a little bit more limited than usual, that program will be restored, and the not-for-profit will be able to resume its activities, at least on a limited basis. Staff has been asked to evaluate some strategies for expanding the our capability of use of the building during the period of time that reconstruction of the stage area will be occurring over the next several months. And we're rapidly in the process of doing that, specifically by the potential of creating a temporary wall that is further down the room behind this partition, thereby allowing an expanded footprint without interfering with the operation of the reconstruction activities. So we hope to be able to at least consider that, and to perhaps further expand our use of this center during the reconstruction activities. At this point, we were able to locate an attendance of approximately between 80 and 120 people at the recreation center, so we know that the programs are at least continuing to be supported and participated in, but of course we're anxious to move this emergency situation along as quickly as possible, and that's the direction in which our efforts are focused at this point.
Okay.
Thank you. That was more information that's in the staff report, but and that's what I was looking forward to. I don't want to downplay any of the measures that are taken. I was very surprised when I saw it last month, and yes, there is some reconstruction that really needs to take place, and there's safety issues also. But we don't need to talk about how important this facility is and how much it means to the seniors. We need to try and get as much space available for them, for those activities, and for that bingo program, because that also depends on they're dependent on the nutrition program and the very inexpensive lunches that they provide also. So I'd be really interested to know what a temporary wall, whether the temporary wall has to go only a certain height, and with reusable materials that can be used, sheetrock and some framing materials that could be reused in the reconstruction. And because the bottom line is that the facility is not going to be back to normal until estimated beginning of next year, right? Because we're looking at another 4 months of time to 3 to 4 months of activity that we want to get as much use in this temporary situation as we can.
Yes, you're correct. That is our current estimate for the timeline to complete and reoccupy the building in full operation. Related to this idea of a temporary wall, we don't have a lot to report right now other than we've consulted with our staff and are currently truth testing the staff's perspective about how that would be done and how much it would cost. It's a very cost-effective option based on the information we have available right now. The idea would be simply, it won't be beautiful, it'll in fact be very, very temporary looking, but an approximate 8-foot tall wall with visqueen or some materials to block the dust extending from the top of the wall to the inside of the ceiling. It won't be ideal, but hopefully the space could be occupied even though it may be a little bit noisy during daytime operations, because of course we want the construction workers to be able to go quickly and well to get the building reconstructed and fully back in operation.
Action on E.
Move to accept.
Second.
Motion second on item 7E and consent. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Okay. And the last is 7F, adopt a resolution approving the installation of blue curb striping in front of 1600 Santa Lucia Avenue, red curb striping at the intersection of San Mateo Avenue, Keynes Avenue, red curb striping on Linden Avenue near the City Hall Fire Station, red curb striping on Linden Avenue near the City Hall parking lot, and a red curb striping on Shelter Creek Lane near San Francisco PUC Electrical Equipment Cabinet. Marty?
Sure. So I pulled this item because I believe the Traffic Safety Parking Committee, they probably spent numbers and numbers of hours on these red curbed areas or blue curbed areas, and I wanted to acknowledge them for that. In a consent agenda, it's just approved and it's done. But there's a way that this all works, and the public needs to be aware of how, if you want to do something different in your neighborhood with parking, there's a process. You contact the Traffic Safety Parking Committee, you attend the meetings, and you can figure out how you can make your neighborhood safer. I did go by a couple of these areas. I've known a couple of these areas. The blue curb striping at St. Andrews, it's probably not the best place for somebody that has trouble moving to get out on a slope. And I'm bringing that up because I think of just all the parking problems we're having in San Bruno, and there's a potential parking lot that is adjacent to our parking lot just over there that it's just a barren lot. And I think as we move forward to look at the pool, we're gonna need parking, and they need parking because they have only a handful of parking spaces in the back. I would like at some point to start a discussion about how we could work together to create a win-win situation where we have more parking for the people that come to the pool in the future, the people that go to the park currently, and the people that can attend those services. So those are my comments in bringing that up and pulling that from the agenda. The other one that I wanted to talk about was on Linden Avenue, where today I drove by there and the person who was blocking the PG&E vault was blocking it again. And I walked out there and looked at it, and I think the solution there is, instead of making it red curb, is to put bollards, like 2 posts on each side of that, so it does allow the vault to open. And then the other thing is, when I was there, the owner of the truck came out and we started talking, and he couldn't attend the TSPC meeting, but he said he just wouldn't park there again if That was his comment, that he just wouldn't park there again, and he didn't want to see the neighborhood lose one parking space, because it all adds up. So that is what I would have liked staff possibly to look into. And the bigger concern that I have regarding why this subject of putting a red curb there is the failure of our generator to kick in, and not hearing in the staff report, or yeah, in the staff report of what are we doing and why did that generator fail, which is causing this red curb now to be put in because PG&E couldn't access the vault. If staff could comment on the bollards and then maybe give some information on the generator and why that didn't kick in and start when the power went out.
I don't have information about why the generator failed. It's been a few months. I believe it was last winter during the storms, but we could certainly get that information for the City Council. I'd have to ask Public Services Director to comment on the bollards, if that is a viable alternative that the council might want to consider.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council. In regards to the bollards, that can be looked at. It really depends on the existing utilities that's underneath the, the sidewalk as well as the planter strip area. I know the vault actually is situated halfway on the sidewalk and within that planter strip area, so we don't know how the conduits are laid out, in and out of the vault. But that has to be evaluated before we can actually install the bollard.
Right. Typically, the conduits go into the box. And so, and not only that, the owner of the truck who's parked there said, hey, I just won't park there again. I just didn't get a chance to go to TSPC. It was my truck, and I parked there because, as a lot of people know, streets are narrow, and so he hops the curb a little bit so he could not lose a mirror. So if the council will allow staff time to look at the bollards, I think that's something that is beneficial and keeps another parking space.
So would you like to approve F at this point in time, and then we can look into the bollards?
Yes.
Okay, so.
That'll be fine. I so moved.
Second. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion second to approve item 7F on consent. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Right into number 8, public hearings. There aren't any this evening. Number 9, public comment on items not on this agenda. It is the council's policy to refer matters raised in this forum to staff for investigation and interaction where appropriate. The Brown Act prohibits the council from discussing or acting upon any matter not agendized pursuant to state law. Would anyone like to address the council under public comment? Just tell us your name and your street.
City Council, good evening. Russell Steins, Reed Avenue. I come here tonight in hopes you hear me. Here for all my neighbors, you guys all being one of. We have a big parking problem here in San Bruno. And with so many new buildings being proposed in San Bruno, I'm asking you guys to protect the interests of the current residents, quality of our life. It's deteriorating with the more traffic and fewer parking spots and loss of sense of community. I'm asking you not to make matters worse in the future. San Bruno now has a parking committee, and you guys, a couple of you are on there, and we're studying to get parking permits. I think that's a great idea. So I'm sharing the following request with you guys. I ask you guys to amend Municipal Code 724 for oversized vehicles so the police can enforce it. I ask you guys to take a look at the current formula in the TCP. It is extremely deficient. The parking is extremely deficient. I believe with all the new building going on here, we should adopt a new ordinance that all buildings be parking self-contained. One other thought, perhaps we could come up with some kind of incentive for existing businesses here to open up their parking at night, maybe give them a break on their business licenses or business taxes here so we can get some residents, get some parking for some residents that absolutely need it here. I would like this to remain a city, the big city with the little, to remain a small city with the big heart. So I thank you guys kindly, but we really do have a big parking problem here, and we need to figure out solutions to solve it. Thank you kindly.
Thank you. Next.
Ryan Mersney, Keynes Avenue. On July 5th, I personally delivered individual letters on 2 subject matters to each individual member of the TSPC. I also included copies for members of staff. I sent an electronic copy to the city clerk to be distributed to the members of the TSPC. As of today, I have heard nothing, not even acknowledging receipt of the letters. Since the topic of one of the letters to the TSPC pertained to the Bike and Pet Committee, I personally hand-delivered a copy of one of the letters to each Bike and Pet Committee member later that week, with extra copies for staff. Over a month later, I have heard nothing. Over a month ago, I hand-delivered copies of a letter pertaining to suggestions improving the dog park to the city clerk's office. The letters were individually addressed to each member of the Park and Rec Commissioners. I also sent an electronic copy to the city clerk to be distributed. I still have heard nothing. Then I did hear what I'm hoping is an unfounded rumor, that my letters were intercepted by city staff or city management and not delivered to the people they were addressed to. I'm asking tonight publicly, were my letters blocked, and if so, what was the legal basis for doing so? Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening, Reina Burgos from 293 Flora. I echo what Russell mentioned about the oversized vehicles. On Florida and Taylor, we have a resident that parks the school bus. Of course, it's like we already have trouble finding parking, and this neighbor basically is able to park the school bus.
Let me interrupt you just real quickly.
Sure.
Public comment for items not on the agenda, and the oversized vehicles are on the agenda this evening, so we're going to be discussing all of this.
Oh, you'll be discussing.
Yes.
Okay, so not in the agenda will be. Then thank you so much for letting me know. Another thing is, I want to know where can we do to improve the east side on blocking the sidewalks. It is every single morning, and I'm the one calling the police department all the time in the morning and in the evening, because in the morning I see me walking Bruno and Bowie, and also I see mothers with the strollers walking the kids to school. They have to actually go to the street. I think that neighbors don't think how that will have an impact on people walking on the street, on the sidewalks. It's all about me. It's anyway, and I feel like I don't want to be calling every single morning 5, 6 calls to the police station. How can we remedy this? I want something being done because this needs to be resolved. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sandra Perez Vargas. I'm on the 200 block of Mastic Avenue. I also want to address what Reina is talking about. I don't think we're working very efficiently. I don't see why the police need to be called every single day on the same situations. I think if cars or trucks or there's code enforcement, if you go out and issue a citation, I think it should be a very serious citation, maybe with fines. I don't believe it's a good time of code enforcement or police to go back to the same locations again and again. It's not smart and it's not cost effective. I also was wondering about the tree cutting job. I heard that might be eliminated and outsourced. I think that really seriously needs to be looked at. We have some very good employees working here doing those jobs. and to shift it to someone
That's
outside
also
the
on the
city.
agenda
Is
later.
it? Okay, then I'll pass that. So I will go back to the 4th of July on my street at 200 Mastic Avenue when a party was allowed to blow out to 50 some odd people fist fighting and urinating in the street, which wasn't closed down. It went on all hours of the night. It's interesting that it received very little response and went out of control. A few weeks ago, after a neighborhood watch, someone called the police because there was an altercation between two neighbors, I believe. And as far as I know, there were no weapons, no blows, only one windshield wiper was pulled off a car, yet that warranted 11 police cars and a fire truck. I'm having trouble with this. I don't understand it. And they didn't just come in and look around. One car, two cars, that could have gotten under control. But that for over a half hour, about 11 cars were sitting on my block when I begged on 4th of July to get assistance. It just seems like something is very off with this city. This is in New York. This is Little San Bruno. I think we really need to sit down and re-examine it. And hopefully, with the new elections, and unfortunately my husband, Stephen Seymour, will not be running for council. He was called out of town because his mother's ill. But I'm hoping that whoever's running really doesn't just listen to the residents, but does something for the residents. Don't tell us what you can't do. Tell us what you're willing to do for us. I will get behind anybody who can do that, but somebody who over and over tells me we can't do this, because of that, it's not working. My neighborhood is falling apart, completely falling apart. It's unsafe. People park wherever they want. People in wheelchairs have no ADA access on most ramps, and it just seems like we really, really look closely at what's going on in our city. It's not good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Wendy Ambrose. I live on San Anselmo Avenue North. I'm actually the exact end of the block opposite the park, and it's parking. A situation that has become dreadfully apparent to me is the number of cars registered to one address more than the parking of that address will allow. I have a couple of neighbors. One has 5 cars, 1 driver. One has 4 cars, 2 drivers, and a family member that comes and visits every single day. The parking there is so bad, and I propose that we try to figure something out about a relationship of the property and the parking allowed on the property. And if you have additional vehicles, there has to be something done, some additional fee or something. I got into it with this gal because she didn't want me to park in that 20 feet, 18 feet right in front of her house. I'm a block and a quarter from my house. A block and a quarter. So it's just like, I'm just going crazy. And then there's another neighbor that has a truck that doesn't run. It's a neighbor. You don't want to call on the neighbor. But it's a truck that doesn't run in a prime parking place, not down by the park, right in front of my house. And I've lived here 13 years. I bought my place 13 years ago, and it's absolutely extraordinary how difficult it is to park. And I work late. I come home at 11, 11:30. I haul stuff. The street lights aren't adequate, but that's not why I'm here. It's really the parking. And something I would suggest is, could we just line out the sizes of the spots? People don't know how to park here. They're not like from the city where you only keep so many inches in front and behind so that when cars leave, it leaves more space. So I would like to see if maybe we could mark out spots, and I would like to see if there might be some way to investigate multiple cars to one address without adequate parking.
All right, thank you. Anyone else?
Hi there, I'm Nick Lopez from Mastic Avenue. I was originally here for the 724 issue, but hearing this parade of other items, I want to propose a possible solution, and I actually attribute it to the police department that originally directed us. I have a back fence neighbor as barking dogs. We've exchanged words. We've squirted hoses at each other. We had a really good time of it here. We went to the police department. They directed us to mediation. We sat down, spent 2 or 3 hours getting to know each other's issues, and we haven't had a crossword since. You know, parking's going to come up. There's differences of opinion on safety, loss of parking, aesthetics, various frustrations. I think a lot of this can be resolved by mediation. I think it's very effective. I think it worked for me, and I'm pretty stubborn. So I'd like to offer that back, and I want to thank the police department for their previous service on this.
All right, thank you. Anyone else under public comment? Okay, we'll get right on to conduct of business, item 10A and 10B. What we're going to do is kind of a hybrid this evening for informational purposes. We're going to have Kerry give us an overview of both parks, and then we're going to have separate votes when it comes up. So, Kerry, you're on.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. I'm very pleased to present for the City Council's approval contracts for the construction of both the Earl Glenview Park and the Florida Avenue Park. My comments tonight will provide some general remarks. I will then provide separately remarks about each park project. Staff is requesting that the City Council take action on each individual park as they're presented. It's not often that the city, or any city, has an opportunity to deliver one, let alone 2 new parks to the community, and tonight is a very exciting milestone. The vision for these 2 parks was created through the passionate input of the residents within the neighborhoods to be served by the park, specifically Florida and its surrounding area and the Glenview neighborhood. They were professionally designed to incorporate features and equipment to ensure a wide array of opportunities for play, relaxation, and socializing. The Earl Glenview Park, with its expanded footprint, replaces the park destroyed in the tragic September 9, 2010 PG&E explosion and fire. The Florida Avenue Park offers much-needed open and active space to a densely populated and underserved neighborhood. Both parks offer play equipment for children of all ages, active green space and landscaped areas, decorative concrete pathways, and areas for quiet enjoyment of the park. Consistent with the wishes of the 2 neighborhoods and the other neighborhood parks throughout the city, restrooms, barbecues, and off-street parking facilities are not included in the design of either park. We are pleased to report that the bids received by the city for the construction of both parks came in below the engineer's estimate. With award of construction contracts tonight, staff anticipates both parks' construction will commence in October with completion scheduled for February of next year. I would first like to start with an overview of the Earl Glenview Park. Focusing your attention to the screen behind me, the park serves as a gateway to the neighborhood and will feature a prominent sign at the intersection of Claremont and Glenview Drives, right there. In addition to the amenities discussed earlier, the design ensures landscape buffer between the parks and adjacent residents along this line. And consistent with the request and the neighborhood of the families who lost loved ones in the tragic explosion and fire, the Earl Glenview Park incorporates a memorial overlook into the canyon with 5 distinctive granite seats which will bear bronze plaques in remembrance of the 5 families who lost loved ones as a result of the tragic explosion and fire. One bid received for the Earl Glenview Park was submitted by Elite Landscape Services of Clovis, California. Staff performed a thorough review of the bids submitted, the bid's conformance with the project documents, and the contractor's qualification and references. Based on the favorable results of this review, staff recommends that a construction contract be awarded to Elite Landscape for the construction of the Earl Glenview Park. To ensure continuity, construction management inspection of the Earl Glenview Park will be performed by the city staff currently managing the infrastructure work underway in the Glenview neighborhood. As a result of the bids coming in below the engineer's estimate, the appropriation for the park project can be reduced by approximately $250,000. This concludes my report on just the Earl Glenview Park, and the staff welcomes any questions, comments, or action by the council.
Anything on Earl Glenview? Anything from the public?
Through the chair. What about across the street? What about the Earl?
I'm sorry.
There you go.
Go back. I apologize, I forgot that part. So back to my earlier comment about a buffer between the neighbor and the park. There's landscaping along here, and there's a sports court in this portion of the park, located here.
Okay. Anything else on Earl Glenview?
Really quick. On 1701 Earl, and on the other location, neighbors have been, this has been reached out to them. They're comfortable with the vegetation and the buffer, as you call it.
In fact, I spoke with the gentleman, I apologize, I don't remember his name, that lives in that residence. We did discuss the landscape plan. He had two interests. One, that we not plant high trees on the slope, which would impact his view, and that we be mindful of both the nature of the planting and the care of the landscape on the slope.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else on Earl Glenview? Marty?
I just had a question. You said that construction will begin in October and hopefully finish in February. That's our rainy season. Is that still a viable schedule?
We anticipate construction of both parks will take 60 working days, and so the schedule that I provided the council assumes some days for rain delays as well as holidays. Hopefully we will not have as wet a rainy season this year as we did last year.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Marty?
What kind of ball court is that? Is it?
So it's a mixed-use sports court. It's intended to provide both a soccer goal and a basketball hoop for children to play with their parents. It's not meant to be a half court or a basketball playing space. The neighborhood specifically requested not to have that. That was probably the single feature in the park's design that had the most robust conversation within the neighborhood. But overall, I would say that the neighborhood felt strongly that this was a good compromise between the people who wanted to be able to play basketball with their children and the people who didn't want there to be a disturbance in the neighborhood.
Is there any fencing to keep that errant ball from going down and getting into the street and down to the bottom of the hill?
So we have designed fencing along this portion of Glenview so that people don't cut across the back of the park.
Got it.
This area is flat and shouldn't create, it slopes back just ever so slightly to the park to prevent, or to the back wall of the park, to prevent balls from coming out onto the street.
Last question, and that's the crosswalk there. It's kind of hard to see right there. Is that the crosswalk?
Correct, at the
Okay.
intersection of Earl and Glenview.
And is there going to be a stop there, or is there a stop there?
That is not, there's a stop
On Earl's side?
on this side.
Right. Okay. Maybe the TSPC will see something there at some point, but thank you.
Okay. You come to the podium, please.
Thank you. I don't see any lighting there.
So consistent, Mr. Mayor and members of the council, with how we design neighborhood parks throughout the community, we rely on the placement of streetlights to provide the appropriate safety illumination. The municipal code restricts late use of city parks, and so parks are typically not designed with evening use light, especially for neighborhood parks.
Okay. Anyone else? Kerry, why don't you give us an overview of Florida?
If I may, Mr. Mayor, we're first seeking action on Earl Glenview.
Oh, okay, we can do that, okay. Adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a construction contract with Elite Landscape Construction, Inc. in the amount of $1,047,550 for the Crestmore Neighborhood Reconstruction Earl Glenview Park project and approving a construction contingency of $157,133 and approving a total project budget of $1,411,378.
Through the chair,
Ken?
I'd like to introduce the resolution on the proviso that I get invited to the ribbon cutting.
Groundbreaking? Ribbon cutting?
Ribbon cutting. I think I'll be here for the groundbreaking.
Vice Mayor Ibarra,
Aye.
Councilmember Marty Medina,
Aye.
Councilmember Rico Medina,
Aye.
Councilmember O'Connell,
Aye.
Mayor Ruane.
Aye. Item B, you want to give us an overview first, Kerry?
So, before we do that, Councilmember Marty Medina is required by state law to recuse himself from this item because he lives within 500 feet of the park.
Okay, in that case, I'll just introduce the resolution and you can give us some staff report, all right? Adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a construction contract with Star Construction, Inc. for the Florida Avenue Park project in the amount of $949,515. Execute a contract for construction management services with Anchor Construction Management in an amount not to exceed $49,460. Approving a construction contingency of $142,427. Appropriating $348,432 in additional funding from the General Fund Capital Reserve, and approving a total budget in the amount of $1,323,432. Kerry?
Now on to the Florida Avenue Park. This park incorporates features unique to its location in the Cupid's Row neighborhood by including colored concrete seating in the shape of hearts at the gateway to the park. Maybe can see them. They're very small. They won't be that small in real life. Also incorporated along the entry to the park is the antique and architectural wrought iron fence that was removed from the residence. Using the construction of the Florida Avenue Park as an opportunity to expedite sidewalk and roadway improvements adjacent to the park, the scope of the project was expanded to include new sidewalks around the perimeter of the park. Also included was widening of the intersection at Martin Place and Taylor Avenue to prevent future damage to sidewalks caused by the small turning radius and damage to these sidewalks when very large vehicles turn from Taylor Avenue onto Martin Place. As part of this widening, 3 additional on-street parking spaces will be created along Martin Place adjacent to the west edge of the Florida Avenue Park. 2 bids were received for the Florida Avenue Park project, with the low bid submitted by Star Construction of San Bruno. Staff performed a thorough review of the bids submitted, the bid's conformance with the project documents, and the contractor's qualifications and references. Based on the results of this review, staff recommends that a construction contract be awarded to Star Construction for the construction of the Florida Avenue Park. To ensure dedicated oversight and the effective and timely delivery of the Florida Avenue Park, construction management will be performed by Anchor Construction Management, who, in response to the city's request for proposal, offered the strongest and most qualified proposal. Staff, as in the case with Earl Glenview Park, will also perform project inspections for this park. To fully fund the park's construction, the added sidewalk and roadway improvements, and the construction management, an additional appropriation from the city's General Fund Capital Reserve in the amount of $348,432 is necessary. That concludes my report on the Florida Avenue Park, and we look for your direction.
Okay, any questions on Florida Avenue?
Through the chair.
Okay.
I'm just curious why this park needs construction management contract and there wasn't one for the other park. I know you mentioned something about the existing contractors up there.
So for all of our projects that we do in the city, there is construction management. It's either provided by city staff or through contract service. In the case of the Earl Glenview Park, that construction management service is being provided by Kerry Burns in conjunction with the Phase 4 improvements. And so we need construction management expertise for the Florida Avenue Park as well.
So going back to the Earl Glenview Park, that's not an added expense?
No, it is not. It's already included in the Phase 4 expenses.
Great, thank you.
Anything else in Florida? Anyone? Podium, please.
Reina Burgos, Florida Avenue. Two concerns I have, and we're very pleased to have this park. Thank you so much. One thing is safety about children playing there, and Florida is a freeway on the weekends. So what is it the residents need to do? Do we need to attend a meeting to safety and traffic department? What do we need to do? We need some speed bumps. There's no stop sign on Taylor in Florida or San Anselmo in Florida, nor is a stop sign on Huntington in Florida. So basically, everybody speeds insane. It is insane. And before anything happens, because we've been looking forward to this park, so something needs to be done to remedy that. That's first item. Second is the drainage. San Anselmo and Florida, as well as Taylor, those two corners, when it rains, my husband and I look like silly people trying to push the water all the way towards Huntington. It gets flooded. So if we can actually, that's my two concerns. So please help us, the residents of Florida, about that.
All right, thank you.
Hi, Wendy, San Anselmo Avenue North. I have been concerned about the streetlights there the entire time I've lived there. So I just would like that there's extra special attention, because I heard that there's going to be no auxiliary lighting, that the lighting that exists is indeed accurate and up to code, and if it is, I think it needs to be a bit revisited. You may need to add one more light. I walk the middle of the street when I'm coming home at 11:30 because it's so dark on the sides, and I'm afraid. So if the lighting there is regulation, I think you need to add at least one more light. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Any more discussion or action by the council?
Through the chair, and then
Rico.
I'd like to have Irene for the resolution. Just on the traffic calming, can staff assist Rena in as far as the process for the traffic TSPC? City manager?
Yes.
As far as just getting her the information, and there's a toolbox that they have in which to follow the process for the traffic calming. So that's your first approach. The next one was about drainage and streetlights. To Ms. Burns, is there no lighting whatsoever? Auxiliary, I mean zero, it is completely dark within Florida?
Correct.
Okay.
And that is also the case for Earl Glenview.
Correct. Okay. And then so is that possible for staff to just look at the, Wendy, I'm sorry, I forgot your last name, but. Emeros. Can I call you Wendy? Thank you. So if we can look to Wendy's comment in regard to the street light, if that's possible.
Anyone else? Irene?
I'd like to introduce the resolution.
Councilmember O'Connell.
Aye.
Councilmember Marty Medina, excuse me. Councilmember Rico Medina.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Ibarra.
Aye.
Mayor Ruane.
Aye. I just want to say these are two very exciting projects for the city, two brand-new parks in the city here. One as a result, unfortunately, of a tragedy almost 7 years ago, but it's going to be a very nice addition to the neighborhood. And in Florida, you had an old, decrepit residence there that wasn't lived in for many, many years, and now it's taken down, and with the efforts of the San Bruno Community Foundation, and the city's general fund, you have some very exciting things coming up for some neighborhoods that really need some help. So it's good stuff, and we're looking forward to it. Thank you.
Through the chair?
Yes.
Thank you. Which reminds me, do we have an update of the art piece that we saved that was in that building? I'm sorry, I just thought of it now.
I don't have a detailed update for you this evening, but it is a subject on which I believe we need to present additional information to the City Council. I'm currently intending to bring something back to you at your next meeting so that we can determine how we want to proceed.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right. Item 10C, receive a report and provide direction regarding amendments to the San Bruno Municipal Code, Chapter 7.24, restricted street use, oversized vehicles. Mark.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, the topic before you tonight is a relatively minor but hopefully useful proposed change to our ordinance regarding parking of oversized vehicles. So staff had received a suggestion that some oversized vehicles are moving around every 12 hours and thus avoiding getting ticketed, and that was negatively impacting some of the neighborhoods in which those vehicles are located. And the reason why they were moving every 12 hours is because the current ordinance requires the police to warn the operator, driver, owner of those vehicles before they're ticketed. So the suggestion was to simply amend the ordinance and eliminate the requirement that their warning be issued before a citation can be given. So the practical effect of that is it would allow the police to cite the owner of the vehicle if that's appropriate, and to determine whether it's appropriate or not, you have to go back to what was the reason for the 12 hours. And staff understands, this was before some of our times, that the reason was to allow individuals who owned recreational vehicles to bring them over to their house, load them up, and get ready to go camping or whatever they were going to do the next morning. So that was the reason for the 12-hour period. In any event, the police would retain discretion, even if you eliminated that requirement, to warn under those and other similar kinds of circumstances. So we thought that it would be a reasonable first step, at least, to address this issue if it's occurring of oversized vehicles moving around in order to avoid getting ticketed. While we were at it, we couldn't resist the temptation to make a couple of other tweaks to the ordinance. One of them was merely to change the weight in one of the other sections to conform with state law. State law has changed since that ordinance was written, so instead of 6,000 pounds, it's actually now 10, because there's a lot of passenger vehicles that are 6,000 pounds. And then we also did a little cleanup and a couple of words in that weight section of the ordinance. So this relatively minor change is reflected in the ordinance that's proposed in your staff report, and it's open tonight for discussion and direction by the City Council, any comments from the public, and the Chief and I are available to answer any questions. Okay. That concludes my report.
Any discussion?
I had a quick question for you mentioned in the beginning of your staff report that since May, there's been a large increase in complaints, and then also on the reporting app. Do we know how many of those complaints involved RVs?
I don't have that information. Okay. The police chief may know, but I don't know that the information was sorted in that manner.
It'd be interesting to know because, I mean, for the history of this ordinance.
Good evening. As far as specifically for recreational vehicles or motorhomes, it's hard to track those. Very few calls that we receive involve recreational vehicles or motorhomes. I did a little bit more digging in addition to what's in the staff report, and I can tell you that from the first of the year through today's date, the police department has received 142 calls regarding the parking of oversized vehicles. 57 of those complaints, or 57 vehicles, were issued warnings pursuant to the code as a result of those calls. An additional 13 were actually cited, meaning they did not move in the time period that they were required to move. And the remainder of those vehicles did not meet the criteria for being oversized, or they had been moved before the police department's arrival. So specifically with RVs and motorhomes, I can tell you that we don't see a whole lot of that anymore. Most of the calls that we get involve different types of vehicles.
And just for everyone's information, can you let everyone know what is an oversized vehicle?
The length is 22 feet and the width is 6.5 feet. It's not to exceed either one of those parameters. That's one code section. There's a separate code section for commercial vehicles that the city attorney referenced, which now prohibits vehicles in excess of 6,000 pounds to be parked on the street. However, as the city attorney mentioned, state law has been changed to make that requirement 10,000 pounds.
And for example, a 2017 Dodge extended cab pickup truck. Any idea how large that vehicle is?
Yep, pickup trucks and pickup trucks with campers are specifically exempt, and they're listed in the code specifically. Their width obviously wouldn't be a problem. I'm sorry, the length obviously wouldn't be a problem, but the width is getting pretty close. So we'd have to, 6.5 feet, some of the new trucks with dual tires can get pretty wide. However, the code does address pickup trucks and pickup trucks with campers and exempts them.
Thank you.
Okay. Marty, you have anything?
Kind of want to hear from the public. I think this is a first whittling away of the problem in parking. It's not going to solve it, clearly, but it's something that I'm glad we're going forward with.
Okay. Any comments from the public? Just come to the podium and tell us your name and your street, please.
My name is Jairo Rodriguez. I live on 6th Avenue. The biggest problem we have is oversized vehicles. I'm talking about 3-axle dump trucks that are constantly driving through 6th Avenue. And the reason is because of all the warehouses and pretty much anything industrial is on Shaw Road and 7th Avenue. And they're using 6th Avenue as a shortcut to get to 101. If anybody happens to drive by, you can see how torn up the street is compared to 5th, 4th, and 3rd Avenue. I have sent multiple emails and started in December of last year. Signs were eventually placed saying no trucks. It was a no truck sign that was placed on 6th Avenue and on Walnut Street, but the placement of the sign is completely blocked by an electric pole. It's completely out of sight. Nobody can see it as they're making that turn, and it's too far into the street to where most of the trucks that make the turn are too far into the street, and it's a nightmare having to back up onto San Bruno Avenue to keep going their route. Cars get hit from time to time. They just keep going. Between neighbors, we try to watch over each other. Once in a while, somebody will catch the drivers driving by and pretty much force the drivers to give any information, insurance and whatnot, to make a report. This problem's been going on for years. What can be done about it? The sign is not in view within sight of anybody, so I mean, it's constant emails and nothing has been done. There's a sign on Walnut Street. Somebody turned the sign away, so anybody that approaches that street won't see the sign at all. I would just like to see a solution to the problem. It's been over a year.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Mindy Beatty. I live on Cedar Avenue.
Cedar?
Yes. My question is about looking forward on the oversized vehicles. So cities like Palo Alto are having issues with people parking RVs and just moving them all the time. Will this 10,000-pound limit still keep recreational vehicles from moving in? Because given the housing crisis, this is what's happening in cities like Palo Alto. So will this still prevent any recreational vehicles in the future, or is this still too small of a size? That's my question. Thank you.
Pam from 7th Avenue. I just have 2 questions and more clarification than anything. You said the code now is 10,000 pounds, is it? Or is it 6?
6 now.
6 now. But you're upping it to the state of 10?
That's the proposal in front of the city council.
The proposal, okay. And the second thank you. And the second question is, driving in this evening to this meeting, there's a very beautiful cab to a rig parked in front of the park, would that fall in the, I mean, it's a huge cab without the trailer, but would that also fall into the same?
I suppose if it's wide enough, huh?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the police would have to go out and check it out. If
Right.
the gross vehicle rating is over 6, then it would qualify. If it's over 22 feet long and 6 feet 6 inches wide, it would qualify under the size ordinance.
Okay.
Fred Schmidt, live on the corner of 3rd and Pine. Have a lot of trouble with limousines and Uber drivers, and they get really rude. I got one that drives by all the time. My 9-year-old grandson, he's always asking, how come this guy drives by, beeps the horn, and flips me off? You know, it's getting really bad over there. We need to do something with the parking. Thank you.
That's 3rd and Pine, is that correct?
Yeah, 3rd and Pine.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
I apologize. It seemed like this is being me all, I mean, speaking too much, but this is also about the oversized. I'm talking about, and I have pictures, a school bus, not the lone school bus, but the half size. The neighbor does not park it in front of his or her house, but on Flora, basically eliminating parking from the ones that we don't even have a driveway. Also, there are residents on Milton Avenue that bring trucks, minivans, cable guys, basically work cable with all the equipment. They park on Friday and don't move it until Monday. So basically, the parking in front of their houses is taken. So this, please help us remedy that. Thank you very much.
Hi, good evening. My name is Callista. I live on Poplar Avenue. I wanted to understand. I think it's obviously parking is a big issue here, but I think the lowest hanging fruit is to just get oversized commercial vehicles off. So what I don't no warning, that's the rule. They don't get to have commercial vehicles in the public space. So I'm hoping at the end of tonight that that's going to be the rule. What I don't understand, what I'd love clarification on is, are we talking about no commercial vehicles, this cab that was just brought up that is perhaps shorter than the length and width that was just discussed and or weight, that's still a commercial vehicle? Or
We're talking this evening about oversized vehicles.
Yeah, sorry.
Can oversized be also commercial? I think it should just be.
Mark?
Why don't you go ahead and finish, and then I'll address your questions.
All right.
Go ahead, that's it. I just really, oversized vehicles for sure, but at the very least, commercial vehicles should not be on the street. I wanted to make sure that we don't solve one problem here without thinking about the entirety.
Okay. I'll ask the chief for some comments when we're all done.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else?
Bill Goff, Maple Avenue. My concern is a couple of PG&E rather large trucks. One parks on Canes, right at the top of the hill, and one on Cherry or Cedar Avenue, and they're right at the top of the hill. And they definitely, I think, are more than 6.5 feet wide. But I don't know whether these PG&E workers are on duty or not, but they're rather big trucks. And you have to go past the middle of the street in order to get your car by. So, anyway, that's it.
Okay. Anyone else?
Just a quick comment on that. I also believe they shouldn't be out there at all because they're so wide. Not only are they tearing up our streets because they're heavy, they also block traffic, and the avenue streets are so narrow as it is that when you're coming around them, sometimes you're almost going head on to oncoming traffic, which makes it really safe for the residents. So that's another thing to consider. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ruane Mayor, Keynes Avenue. For over a year now, I have been trying to get PG&E to take its trucks off the street. I've been trying to work with them I keep getting the runaround and being sent to somebody else. I finally got to someone who said they would speak to Councilmember Marty Medina about a suggestion that we found a public parking area that they could park their trucks in that would be close to their homes so that they could have quick access in case of an emergency in the middle of the night, some power line has gone down. PG&E has not been receptive to this at all. So I'm going to ask the council if they would consider being a little bit more forceful in tone with PG&E to say, we'd really like to find a solution with you. Please work with us. Because right now they're basically saying, we're PG&E, we just don't care. And it is a safety issue, particularly the one that Mr. Goff was speaking about on Keynes Avenue. The worker parks his truck, puts a cone out, the safety as safe as it can be, but unfortunately, as you're coming around that corner in a heavily traveled street, for those of us that don't know it's there, it really comes up on you very quickly. And I have seen numerous people have to basically swerve or throw their brakes on because of it. So that one particularly is a very serious safety issue, not just a blight to our city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Shabina. I live on 4th Avenue. I wanted to address the oversized vehicle issue that we're having in our neighborhoods. I'm sorry, I'm nervous. We have multiple taco trucks which are in our neighborhood. And I understand that everyone's trying to give, they give the citations and they have a lot of time where they can move the vehicles. But I think that warnings shouldn't be issued. I think tickets should be issued. So that would really address the issue, the problem that we're having. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Nick Lopez and Mastic Avenue. I was talking with Steve Seymour earlier today over in New Mexico. We want to make sure that we're clear about the topic, the difference between business vehicles and commercial vehicles. Every pickup truck has a commercial plate. So we call it a commercial vehicle. It gets confusing, and it gets confusing in the eyes of the law as well. So I think most of the people are complaining about business vehicles. Of course, there's vehicles like the Mr. Reuter truck that need to be on call. Some level of provision for PG&E somewhere. But for the most part, I don't think people like having business vehicles parked in their neighborhood because they're large, they tend to be over large, and it's really an aesthetic burden. I think that's why people are most unhappy about it. Everyone who's come up to speak about this was speaking about a business vehicle. It's probably not within the scope of this particular change in the ordinance, but we should at least address it, and acknowledge it, and maybe put it in the plan to visit it in the future. Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Mark?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, if you could just make a couple of quick comments. So I think that the discussion by the public has outlined many of the different competing interests that the city has to weigh in determining how to address parking of vehicles on its streets. So, for example, the current ordinance with respect to size does not only apply to commercial vehicles, it applies to all vehicles. So that's an important distinction. There has been some comments about commercial vehicles being a blight on the neighborhood. Well, one of the things that state law requires is that any parking restrictions that are adopted have a rational basis and be related to a legitimate city interest. So, for example, it is not a city interest to regulate the kinds of businesses that people operate or that people work for. It is not the city's interest to regulate what kinds of vehicles people own or are allowed to own when they live in our city. It is in the city's interest to regulate the parking and traveling of certain kinds of vehicles on its streets as long as there's a rational basis for doing so. So what this ordinance has tried to do, and what the changes that are being proposed are trying to do, is provide the police with a little bit of extra discretion to cite those vehicles to solve a problem that we believe is occurring. It'll be interesting to see whether that problem actually is occurring once more citations are issued, if that's the case, and whether the problem is ameliorated. And so what normally when staff is asked to look at an issue, we try to first figure out what is the problem that we're trying to solve. And then we go gather some data, and then we analyze the data, and then we provide some alternatives, and then we evaluate those alternatives to make sure that they don't have any unintended consequences. So here, we did it a little bit backwards. And instead what we did is we took what the community was saying was a problem that they perceived and tried to come up with a relatively simple fix for that problem. So it remains to be seen whether the fix to the problem actually solves that particular problem or not. It is certainly not going to solve many of the other problems that some of the residents are talking about. And as I say, the city is not in the business of regulating what kinds of cars people can own if they're not oversized or if they're not overweight. So, and the over the weight limit by state law. So these are a number of the considerations that we're trying to sort out. And staff thought that this was a reasonable first step to try to see whether this particular change would have an effect on the number of oversized vehicles that are parking in the neighborhood. Last thing I'll say is we don't actually know how many oversized vehicles are parked in the neighborhoods. The fact that we've gotten a number of complaints is not an indication of how many vehicles there are. It's only an indication of the number of complaints. So we have not done a survey of what kinds of oversized vehicles those are. We don't know if they're commercial or otherwise. And then finally, it's important to note that under state law, there's a definition of commercial vehicle that is very different than what lay people think a commercial vehicle is. So a commercial vehicle is not your Ford Explorer with Acme painting plastered on the side of it. That is not a commercial vehicle under state law. So there are some differences about how these kinds of ordinances can be applied and adopted so that individuals who live in the city can have reasonable access to the streets and reasonable access to their residences.
Thank you. Chief, I have a couple of quick questions. Some of the comments this evening did not pertain to what we're really talking about, but I, got some, let some people vent a little bit. But for instance, I've seen the PG&E truck that has the cone on it parked over there on Canes and stuff. And what's the restriction on vehicles? There's some in front of St. Robert's. I see the guy moves it every once in a while. Sometimes he doesn't. Is it a 72-hour thing with DMV? Is it? Tell me about things like PG&E or where people have to be on call, for instance.
Sure. Well, as the city attorney mentioned, we're talking about two different code sections. We're talking about commercial vehicles and oversized vehicles, which there's two different codes. There are two different animals entirely. The oversized vehicle is subject to the length and width restrictions that we mentioned before. Is really a separate issue from the commercial vehicle. The commercial vehicle is addressed in the section that deals with weight. Right now it's 6,000 pounds. State law says it should be 10, so that we'll see what happens there. There is a caveat and an exemption to the commercial vehicle code section when it comes to weight, and that means that if for example, if you're driving your employer's vehicle, or even if it's your own vehicle, and it exceeds that limit, you're allowed to park within close proximity to your residence. As long as you're not running a business out of your residence, the code allows you to do that. So if you work for PG&E or any other utility, and you may drive a vehicle that may meet the length and width requirements that the city mandates, but it exceeds the weight limitation, and you're parking it in close proximity for your home because that's the vehicle you drive back and forth to work, that's permitted under the code.
Okay, thanks. Anything else for the chief while he's up here?
Through the chair.
Ken?
Chief. Gentlemen, the resident got up and using 6th Avenue as a truck route. Any ideas on how we can try to alleviate that?
Sure, I do. It may be a different discussion. So truck routes and parking are two different things, obviously. Commercial routes, we have identified commercial routes throughout the city. I believe we have 4 of them. I'd have to go back and check. I can pretty much name them. However, it does allow trucks and commercial oversized vehicles to make deliveries to specific addresses and to conduct business. So, for example, if you were moving into a home, it would be permissible for a moving truck to drive down your street and unload your items. If you own a business in a residential area, it's permissible for a truck to make deliveries to that business. As you know, we have one traffic enforcement officer that works 4 days a week, and he has a whole bunch of responsibilities, and this is on his radar, and we've done enforcement in that area. We're very aware of the Shaw Road issue in South San Francisco, and Walnut and 6th and 7th Avenues being used as routes, and we do the enforcement that we can there. But if there's deliveries going to within that neighborhood, that's permissible under both state law and the municipal code.
Through the chair.
If I could just add to what the chief said, though, the gentleman, the speaker from the audience this evening did provide a useful suggestion, that just simply that we can make sure that the signage is actually visible. So we will take care of that.
So just, and thank you to the city manager, Mr. Rodriguez had brought up about the sign being blocked, and then the one that's turned around on Walnut, those two.
Right. Okay. Irene?
Well, that's what I was going to ask you, and maybe several more signs. Just 2 doesn't seem quite adequate. So if we put those 2 that are there highly visible and maybe look at adding some more if that's appropriate.
Yes, we're all for, I mean, from a police department perspective, we can never have enough signs and providing people direction. I will tell you that we're going to cite whether the signage is acceptable or not, and let somebody challenge that in court if they're violating a code. It's just a matter of having personnel out there to do
Yeah.
that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. To the chief, it was brought up regarding the school bus, which we've heard before. I know it's not the regular school bus that you would believe is taking the high school students. I know it's not that size. And then also vans who are cable providers. So they're allowed because obviously it meets within the size. They can park because that's their driver's use for their work. So you've indicated that. And what about the school buses brought up?
It depends on the code says passenger buses are exempt from the oversized vehicles. So we'd have to go out and look at what that bus is being used for and determine whether it qualifies as a passenger bus pursuant to the vehicle code. But if it is a passenger bus that's used for a legitimate purpose to transport individuals, then it may be exempt. We'd have to look at that and see exactly what type of bus that is.
And then Fred had brought up on 3rd and Pine about the limo and Uber. I know Uber can go anywhere, but as far as the limos, if residents feel that they have a variety of limos that are being parked, that could be an indication of a business being operated out of the home, which then that would not be allowed if they did not have the proper permit.
That's true, as well as we've had an issue several years ago with limousine staging in that area. We don't see that. I mean, there may be limousines going to certain locations in that, but there used to be a problem associated with the airport, and the airport helped us out by identifying a lot for those vehicles. So we don't see that in relative to SFO, but I do understand about vehicles for hire going in and out of neighborhoods, and the code addresses those vehicles specifically and exempts them from a lot of regulations because they're dropping off and picking up, or they might live there.
Marty?
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, if
Yes.
I may, I just wanted to follow up on something that the chief said, and also for the benefit of the public. There have been a couple of comments made about people operating businesses out of their home. That's actually an extremely difficult and intrusive determination for a city to make. Just because a neighbor calls us and says, well, we think so-and-so is operating a business out of their home, that doesn't constitute evidence on which the city can base a citation or on which the city can conduct code enforcement. The city has to do an investigation. It involves perhaps obtaining entry to the person's home, which they're not obligated to provide, and a whole host of other things. So just because somebody has a car parked outside their house with either a commercial plate on it or a sign on the side that says Acme Painting, doesn't mean that they're operating a business out of their home, nor does it mean that the city could ever prove that they're operating a business out of their home. So I think it's important for this. Oh, and I should also say that's not an ordinance that the police department is going to enforce. That's a code enforcement issue, which is separate. So the police officers aren't going to go around and try to determine who's doing what in their homes unless a crime is being committed. So the important thing to understand is that the traffic enforcement is traffic enforcement, not enforcement of what people are doing with their cars or what they're doing inside their homes.
Thank you. Marty?
Thank you. So this is a great first step, I think, in chipping away at the problem. I think I want to thank Steve Seymour for bringing this to my attention originally. And here we are today. Again, an example of a resident taking charge of something that's important to them and bring it to the council. We'll find a way to make things better for you and your neighborhood. We just got to work together at it. It takes a lot of time. I think the big thing here is the key word in this ordinance is that the police officer retains the discretion to issue the ticket. It doesn't mean automatically they're going to get a ticket when you call to see that oversized vehicle. I would like to retain the 6,000 pound. Millbrae does it. We have state law that says it can be 10,000, or they suggest, but it's not. It's up to the city to determine the exact weight. Is that correct?
So I don't think that's correct. It appears that the state law was changed to 10,000 pounds after our city ordinance. So the fact that Millbrae retains it may just be an indication of the fact that they haven't gotten to changing it yet.
Right. So in the case where this big rig, as my son would call it, you know, the big nice red one, I saw it too. Now, that is allowed then if it doesn't belong in a residential neighborhood, a big rig. Maybe you can get back to us and give us an update on how that would work.
Well, I can tell you.
Oh, you can tell me. No,
absolutely.
Better.
Yeah, if it exceeds 6,000 pounds, it should not be parked there. And right now, it would be subject to a citation. However, if the driver of that vehicle came back and said that he was parking in proximity to his or her home, and challenged that citation, they may have a case based on the way that the code section is written.
Right. So I don't like that. I don't think anybody would like to have, you know,
so just to clarify, that exemption only applies to the code section that deals with weight. The oversized vehicle, there is no exemption for parking in proximity to your home. We're talking about two different code sections.
Okay. My other comment then would be, I understand somebody has a big truck, a welding truck, that's how they work, they come back, you know, whatever they're doing. But we're seeing numerous of the same company truck, whether it be Acme or whatever company it is out there, that would give an indication that they're running a business out of the home. Possibly there's 3 of the same trucks there on the street, parked probably on the lawn in some cases. No, honestly. So that would be something in the hands of code enforcement. They would need to get a home occupation permit to operate that business because they're operating a business out of a home. But will that code enforcement deal with it? The one comment in the staff report here about any van pool vehicle is not a commercial vehicle. That's based on our interpretation of the code, our writing of the code.
That is the existing. That's what the existing code says.
So I'm okay with the van pool vehicle coming around and picking people up, but parking and just staying, and there's more than just one. I mean, they're in numerous neighborhoods. So could we change that, Mark, now? That any van pool, that the van pool can't park. They could come by and do business, but they just can't park because their size would be too big, right? Because they're exempted if they're a van pool vehicle.
So we are here to get direction from the city council about what to bring back, and we're certainly happy to look at any of your suggestions that the city council directs us to look at to bring back in the ordinance revision. What's proposed at the moment is a change to the 12-hour warning period and the other minor amendments that we've recommended.
Got it. The last request, beside, as everybody, or a number of members here were asking for additional signage, that obvious one. I believe the city bought some cameras not too long ago, last year. Could we put one of those cameras up, and perhaps that'll be a big deterrent that a number of these truck drivers, the word will get around. Don't come down Shaw and make a right, because you're going to get a ticket. And they put a camera up there, and that'll be an additional deterrent. Is that possible?
I will tell you from an enforcement perspective, that's difficult. There is state law that allows for the video ticketing of red light violations, but it does not allow for additional vehicle code violations. So I yield to the city attorney, but I think that that would be difficult to issue citations by proxy based on video evidence. That's difficult with infractions.
Right, I would agree. It's not authorized by
Okay.
state law.
All right. I think that's it.
Okay. Anyone else? Ken?
Could I just get it, since the chief is up there again, in the beginning, he said there were, in 2017, 142 complaints, 57 warnings, 13 cited. So.
I should, there has to be a warning, right now there has to be a warning before a citation.
So I'm assuming that those 57 warnings were involved with the 12-hour, possibly
yes,
the 12-hour issue.
Of the 57 warnings, 13 of those failed to adhere to the warning and were issued a citation. That does mean, though, that that's about 1/3 of the complaints. 2/3 of the complaints we received were either no longer there or they did not meet the criteria to be a violation.
Okay. So I'm asking is, of those warnings, I mean, if we do adopt the 12-hour, eliminate the 12-hour time period, a lot of those complaints could possibly get cited right away.
Yeah, what you'd see is a much larger percentage of the 57 warnings that instead of 13, you'd probably see a lot more that were issued in citations.
Good.
Not that we wouldn't still try to solve problems and address issues in the neighborhood by all different types of means, but having this as a tool in our toolbox would give us a little bit more leverage in dealing with those things.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? I think you have a quick. Thank you.
So I wanted to speak again about the trucks. Hi, Rodriguez. I live on 6th Avenue. I see the trucks that go by there. They're repeat offenders. They're not, once in a while you'll have one truck that's probably from out of state. They happen to see the sign and they will usually try to back up. But unfortunately, it's mainly local businesses that constantly pass through. I got pictures and videos of the traffic they cause when you got two similar sized vehicles going towards each other. It's a narrow street. They can't fit. One of them's going to have to back up one way or another. On multiple occasions, I was able to approach the drivers while they were stopped and point out to the signs and tell them the sign is there. Can you not see it? And they were being ignorant. They refused to look in that direction. They just kept repeating they don't see the sign. It was just complete ignorance. You see FedEx trucks, UPS making deliveries, but rarely. Like I said, 95% of the time, it's businesses that are actually driving through 6th Avenue as a shortcut.
Okay, I think you heard that the signage will be maintained and possibly increased, and the chief is very aware of the situation, so I think you'll see more enforcement.
Okay, and then another note, neighbors running businesses out of their home. I think last year we had some new neighbors that moved in. He's a mechanic. He has anywhere between 5 to 10 cars, and he's using street parking cars in front of everybody's houses. And I have talked to some of my neighbors, and they have issues parking their own vehicles because this gentleman's running a business out of his shop.
Then you should put a complaint to code enforcement. They can get on it.
Okay. He's doing it on the street. I don't know.
Yeah.
I got pictures and everything, so I don't know.
It's not legal, right? Okay, violation. Yes.
Hi, Wendy Amorose, San Anselmo Avenue North. I just want to bring up a couple of things. I'm being the devil's advocate here. I believe the red rig belongs to a guy that lives just a block or two away. That's his work. I also feel the van pool. It's a van pool, so there are fewer people driving. If the driver of the van pool can't park in front of his house to go pick up 15 people, seems a little, and I'm fed up with parking, but I'm just saying that there are times that we need to appreciate that our citizens are working and are trying to work with their large vehicles in our small streets. And I think that we need to not maybe be so unilateral, because the flip of this is if we just keep making it harder for people trying to make their living, or the van pool thing for sure, why would they do it? If they have to park 6 blocks from their house to be legal, in our town, in our city. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that up. But.
All right, thank you. Go ahead.
So I'm sensitive to that. So maybe the one carpool van, right? But not like 3 or 4. That's just.
Well, not in the same place.
Right. But I hear you, and it's expensive to live here, and people need to work. Just that we don't have the space, and we have to be aware of that. So.
Okay, so staff is looking for, and I kind of hope we don't have Acme Painting, because they got slammed pretty good tonight, whoever they are. So, but anyway, staff is looking for some direction here. So, what's your pleasure?
Through the
way
chair.
It's written, Irene.
Thank you. I'd like you, Mark, to say it again, because there's a lot of people here I think don't quite understand still the difference between a business truck, what the law says a commercial or business vehicle is, and what they may assume is, because I heard people say, oh, no more limousines on our streets, no business trucks anywhere. If that doesn't happen, we're going to be disappointed. Okay. So I'd like clarification on that, and also where our ordinances come from, what restrictions we can and cannot do. Like somebody suggested, keep the 6,000 pounds. We can't do that because the state allows 10, right? Mm-hmm. So could you give a little more about that?
Sure. One of the things I didn't bring with me was the section of the vehicle code that defines commercial vehicles. It's section 220, I believe. I don't know why I remember the number. But what it really addresses are vehicles that are used for the purpose of either hauling people or materials. So they're not passenger vehicles just by virtue of the fact that there's, as I say, Acme Painting on the side of it, and we have a couple of cans of paint in the trunk. So there's a very specific definition that is usually not the kind of vehicles, some of the kind of vehicles that people are complaining about, but not all. So that's on the commercial vehicle issue. As far as how far can the city go, that's an interesting question. The state has said that the state wants to stay out of the minutia of parking, so it's up to cities to figure out what to do. But the limitations are that those regulations must be reasonable, they can't be arbitrary, and the last word that the cases use is they can't be confiscatory. So that's a fancy way of saying you can't prevent people from getting to their property or from engaging in gainful occupation by making your parking so restrictive that people can't get around the city and they lose their constitutional right to travel. So there are limitations, and a number of the suggestions that we've heard relate to specific kinds of vehicles, to people who are engaged in certain occupations, and we have to be very careful when navigating those waters.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, direction to our city attorney.
Well, I'll introduce the resolution. Oh, thank you. I'll introduce the resolution as it stands.
Well, it's no resolution. It's just looking for
direction.
Just looking for direction.
Yeah, if the council is interested, I could bring back a report with these changes in the ordinance, provide a little bit extra detail about both enforcement and signage, and then you can take a look at it and decide if you want to introduce that at an upcoming meeting.
Okay, is that all right with everyone? Marty?
Yeah, I mean, the 12, I mean, for sure, the 12-hour issue is eliminated. Doesn't look like there's any need for RVs, but that'll still be included.
Right. One more thing, yeah.
I was wondering if staff could contact South City and ask if they could put a sign on Shaw as they're coming down the street, knowing that you cannot take your commercial vehicle through San Bruno, do not enter, do not collect 200, don't pass go.
Okay. So, Mark, you have your direction.
Yes, thank you very much, and thank you to the members of the public for all of your comments.
Okay, item 10D, adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a 4-year contract with West Coast Arborist, Inc. for annual pruning and pollarding of street trees in an amount of $677,586.
So good evening again, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. The timely and thorough care of the city's urban forest contributes to the beauty, tranquility, and health of San Bruno neighborhoods. The city's tree crew consists of 2 committed and talented staff whose work demonstrates their care and concern for the health and vitality of the city's urban forest. Despite their efforts, the wide range of responsibilities for citywide tree maintenance challenges the city's ability to properly deliver tree services consistent with the community's expectation and best practices care of publicly owned trees. The Parks and Trees maintenance staff has long struggled to provide the necessary attention to public trees, and especially street trees, completing only approximately 40% of those scheduled for attention in any given year. This challenge predates the more recent struggles the city has experienced with the reliability of the second bucket truck currently scheduled for replacement. Last year, on 2 separate occasions, the City Council asked staff to explore and evaluate efficiencies and cost savings opportunities in the city's management and care of publicly owned trees in order to determine whether or not the second bucket truck used for tree maintenance should be replaced at a cost of $152,000. As described in the staff report, the city, through staff and contract services, currently engages in a wide range of activities to manage and care publicly owned trees. Only one of these activities requires the replacement of the second bucket truck and the reassignment of parks maintenance staff for 5 months of the year who are otherwise assigned to and are responsible for the care of parks, medians, and facilities landscaping. This is the annual pollarding and pruning of city street trees. To evaluate the cost associated with contracting for the annual pollarding and pruning of street trees, and thereby improving the effectiveness and efficiency of the trees and parks maintenance staff, as well as eliminating the need to replace the second bucket truck, staff issued a request for proposals earlier this year. 3 proposals were received, all from well-known and reputable tree service companies. West Coast Arborists provided the low-cost proposal at $146,000 for the first year and $677,586 for the 4-year cycle. In addition, West Coast Arborists has agreed to update the 2010 tree inventory commissioned by the city and prepared by West Coast Arborists free of charge, worth a value of approximately $30,000. By performing annual street tree pollarding and pruning through contract service, the city would achieve the following: no elimination of city staff positions, the return of the Parks Maintenance Division staff to the maintenance and care of all city landscaped areas from November 1st through March 31st, returning these valuable resources and our workforce to the maintenance and landscape of spaces would facilitate ongoing attention to areas such as the parks, medians, especially critical during the warming winters where we just can't seem to get ahead of the weeds and care of the plant material. It would also ensure efficiency and water conservation by providing sufficient staff resources to preemptively and proactively maintain irrigation systems. by returning the parks maintenance staff to the care and maintenance of landscaped areas from November 1st through March 31st. We would effectively increase the staff time allocated to these work activities by 1 3/4 equivalent full-time positions. It would also facilitate the improved overall health of the city's urban forest by ensuring, probably for the first time, that all street trees identified for attention in any given year of the 4-year schedule are in fact completed. And it would eliminate the need for the purchase of the second bucket truck at approximately $152,000. At its meeting on April 11, 2017, staff presented to the City Council the results of its analysis as well as the results of the proposals received in response to our request for proposals. The City Council expressed interest in further pursuing the opportunities presented by contracting for annual street tree pollarding and pruning and directed staff to perform further analysis. This analysis has been completed, and staff is recommending that the City Council award a contract to West Coast Arborist for the annual pollarding and pruning of city street trees in the amount of $146,000 in the first year and $677,586 for the 4-year contract. This concludes my report, and I would be happy to respond to your questions.
Okay. Any questions for Kerry? Rico?
Real quick before we open it up. In our 2017-2018 budget, how many new parks maintenance or parks employees are authorized?
There was the addition of 1 lead parks maintenance worker and 1 parks maintenance worker 1-2.
So we have 2.
Correct.
Thank you.
Anything else? Marty, anything? Okay. Okay, tell us your name and your street.
Jim Evangelist, DeSoto Way. I think that embarking on this outsourcing of in-house work, the work that's being done in-house currently, is a slippery slope. You'll end up losing the experience that's necessary. This is a high-skilled type of work, and you will end up losing that level of skill that is necessary to do the job effectively and safely. I think you can also will lose control of that portion of the budget when you have to deal with outside contractors. You have much more control of your budgets when you have in-house work. Also, I think you must question whether or not a vehicle needs to be replaced just because it's 15 years old or 10, whatever it happens to be. These vehicles can usually go 500,000 miles on their engines. If it has other mechanical problems like hydraulics or joints on the arms, they should be much less costly to fix than replace the entire truck. I think that I wonder if the council has asked, when did the park department stop being able to cut their mandated or allotted amount of trees per year? Is it recent? Maybe if it is recent, because I think they were doing it in the past, in the recent past, that maybe there's been a change of personnel, maybe there's been management changes. There's questions to be asked there rather than just scuttle this in-house work. I think that the city has added hundreds of thousands of square feet of maintenance in the last 10 to 15 years to this, the park crews, and they haven't added any personnel. So that's really where you need to be focused, is getting the personnel that needs to be on hand in order to tackle the large new square footage that's being, the crews are being asked to do. We're adding one new park. There was a replacement park, so they always had that other park to do in their maintenance. And also, is there any question in anybody's minds about the disparity between the 3 bids? The winning bid, obviously the winning bid, is substantially almost half of what the other bids are. That usually is a red flag for anybody who's concerned about the quality of work they might get. Not that I know anything about any of these companies, I'll admit that. But I think those are questions that should be asked. And that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening. My name is Julio Moran. I live on 2731 Sherwood Drive. I'm also your tree technician. I take care of all your city trees. I wasn't going to talk. I was going to let it all happen. But I just can't sit and listen to what's going on. There's been a lot of information you guys have been given that is not accurate. For the last 3 years, 4 years, we have not had the personnel. And even though we do have personnel, they're temps. Temps are not certified to operate our equipment. They don't have certifications to work in traffic or do aerial rescue or any type of first aid. So therefore, those people can't work in our division. So yes, we have had people. Yes, we had bodies, but they're not qualified to meet our qualifications. We've had personnel turns. We had people retire. We've had people on injuries. Our equipment's been broken. Those have all been factors of why, and other things. We've been taken away from our everyday agendas to do other things. Contracting, doing the sidewalk program. It's never been done before. Somehow that got done this year. I was taken away from the tree crew and put on this division to do this with them. During that time, your trees aren't getting done, okay? So when they say that there's 40% getting done, it's not because the employees, it's because of who's in charge and how things are going and the decisions that are being made, okay? I love my city. I came here and I moved here because I love it here and I love what I do. I've met a lot of people that I see familiar faces, but it hurts me that I can't provide a service to my residents the way that we are supposed to. If we have emergencies, we now have only one aerial, okay? Something happens, that aerial's, a lot of the times, it's a lemon. That aerial's in the shop a lot of the times, or it gets borrowed by other departments. Today was, I didn't have it today, it was borrowed for a different department. So those are the little things that I would like for you to know of why the last 4 or 5 years it hasn't been done and why now it's a problem. Because now we're playing catch up, But I just want you guys to at least hear a little different story from what you've been told, because I think you guys need to know that. That's why that's why we've only been able to give you guys 40%. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council members, for letting me talk about this important issue. My name is Amy Bolin, and I'm shop steward for Teamsters 856. I'm here on behalf of the Teamsters 856 to talk about your decision to outsource this winter trimming work. First, I'd like to address that our union does not support outsourcing of our jobs. This just isn't about losing part of our jobs, but taking pride in what we do. I ask that you give us, the employees, the opportunity to work out a solution before you make such a drastic move. For example, we do not need a 50-foot bucket truck to do the job, but only need the 25-foot bucket truck that can be used for other departments within our city. Also, with the current hiring of more parks workers, we would be able to accomplish the work that needs to be done without spending the extra money that you're proposing by outsourcing our work. The cost of the workers is already in the budget, and with the one-time cost for the truck and the yearly depreciation, it is still less than the proposed cost to outsource on a yearly basis. We respectfully ask that you give us the opportunity to work out a solution before outsourcing our work. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. David Delatorre, lifetime resident of San Bruno. Also Secretary Treasurer of the Laborers, Local 261. We're a building and construction trade union. West Coast Arborist is one of our signatory contractors, and being a signatory, they employ our members, which are trained in this field, highly skilled. West Coast Arborists are more than capable in performing the work within budget in a safe manner. If there's any question in regards to wages or salaries, I can reassure you that their West Coast is transparent. They're doing the right thing. They are paying a prevailing wage, and with the prevailing wage, they are, making the contributions to the trust fund. Our members piecemeal their benefits, so that's another benefit of having a signatory contractor out there. And with that, just strongly encourage and hope for your support in having West Coast Arborists. I'm just here to speak on my signatory. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. My name is Vince Courtney. I'm a representative with the Laborers Union. First, I'd like to start by saying that a lot of members at Local 261 call San Bruno home. I'm proud to be here. I'm enthusiastic about the move that you guys are about to make. I want to thank the city for meeting with the represented employees pursuant to their collective bargaining agreement, conferring with those individuals and making sure that they weren't going to lose their jobs. That's important to us. I've been representing public employees and private sector employees for over 15 years. I negotiate collective bargaining agreements in 46 counties in Northern California, so I know how difficult these issues can be. At the same time, we just passed a ballot measure in San Francisco, Proposition E, that netted us $13 to $19 million per year for tree work. San Francisco, where I work, is not going to expand their public sector staff of tree workers, where we represent 1,200 union members. They're instead going to go with West Coast Arborists and some other firms because they know that they have to grow responsibly. It's not right to bring people into the public sector and not know if we're going to have a budget concern and not be able to commit to them a job. West Coast Arborists, the reason I'm enthusiastic about it is because they actually deliver on other fronts. They deliver a community workforce need. They're committed to pre-apprenticeship, certification, apprenticeship, and moving people up. In fact, they're joining the 3408 Department of Industrial Relations apprenticeship program for arborists that requires greater certification than we have in the city and county of San Francisco itself. I probably met a few of you up at the Harry Tracy plant a couple of years ago when we cut the ribbon up there. We're doing a lot of work here with the Public Utilities Commission. Our union would never stand in opposition to another labor union, ever, if we didn't think that this was the right thing to do. I have much respect and much love for the Teamsters, for the work that they do. We have the highest regard for them, but at the same time, even for the laborers, we have contracts in the city and county of San Francisco to get the work done that needs to be gotten done. 40% is not enough for the citizens we serve, and it shouldn't be enough for the citizens here in San Bruno either. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Council discussion? Marty?
I first want to commend Julio for stepping up. As a former Teamster member, employee of 11 years here, I know it's hard to do that. And your words and your passion, I feel those. This is coming down to, in my view, what's really best for our city and how we're going to continue to provide services for our city. I hear the support from labor. We are dealing with a company that will be paying prevailing wages. I hear the concern that the price was so low. That clearly raises a flag. But we have performance clauses, we have safety clauses, we have a 4-year contract that we can see how it goes. Our city can't continue hiring more and more people straight up. We have to be creative, work with our unions, finding how to do things more efficiently. I'm not saying that there is really a finger to point the blame here, what happened. I will allow staff to maybe give a little bit of response to those comments about the efficiency. But we have unfunded pension liabilities in San Bruno. And I believe, and I can ask the city manager or somebody to help me with this, that it's going in the wrong direction. It increased another $6 to $7 million just at the last reporting period. And I think it's close to 60 million. somewhere around there?
I'm sorry, I don't have the exact figures. You're talking about the city's pension liability.
The unfunded.
I don't have those exact numbers, but you're correct. That issue is a.
We're going in the wrong direction, right? We're adding new parks. We added 2 new workers. We just completed a contract with 856, 3 years, 3%. First time ever, we found a way to give a matching deferred comp. It's small, but it was still something. When I was here, I went through, out of the 11 years, the last 6 years, I had no raise. So it's tough. I'm leaning towards accepting this contract. We just finished negotiations. We have a side letter of agreement saying that we're not going to lay anybody off. We need bodies to do all additional work. And I don't think anybody could question that when you take a company like, I'm sorry, City Arborist? West Coast, I'm sorry. That's what they do. That's what they specialize. They're going to come in here and they're going to bring their crews in and they're going to be able to perform. It's hard to compete with that. We don't have that kind of engine to match that. Tree trimming, that's dangerous work. And if we're losing people that don't have that skill anymore, we're going to have to train them. I think I feel I'm in a position where I think we're doing something different, that it's not a, when people say it's a slippery slope, well, that depends on who's your council. This council here has been very supportive of labor. And there's an election coming up. That slope is going to depend on the people that are elected. So keep that in mind when you go to the polls this year, that this council has been supportive of labor. And that's why I'm leaning towards saying yes. And it's a 4-year contract, and we could, if things don't go well, we could void the remaining years. Is that correct? So those are my comments.
Okay. Rico?
I also am a former city employee, former Teamster, also a former Parks and Recreation employee. And I do also commend Julio for coming to share. When a council's asked efficiencies and effectiveness, I think we got a good report. There are situations and circumstances that, whether it's injuries, whether it's apparatus, whether it's staffing component, et cetera, as to why we may be behind. The storms that occurred, I think that was another thing. The storms really put us behind when we had that bad rash. You know, it was commented that the department or the staff had been struggling, and I don't know that it's the staff that's struggling. I think it's the staffing level that's been lacking. The last budget for 16-17, staff came forward and asking for a new manager. Not those in the field, in the trenches, doing the work. This budget for 17-18, now they've put forward for 2 folks, and we are adding on additional items. I do like having our crew doing the work that has been done since my time. I don't question the work ethic, the competency, or the ability of you gentlemen from West Coast Arborists at all. We have a 4-year contract that is a total of over $670,000. Starts off at a certain level, the first year at $146,000, and has 10% increases each year. 10% is a lot. In my mind, I believe in allowing the employees the opportunity. I believe in allowing them to be able to do their work. I believe that I like the independence of having the control here in the city. It speaks no ill of anyone else for the profession that they have and the great work that they do. but I believe in our city, and I believe in our staff, and I believe with 2 new hires, that is going to be an additional, we'll say $180,000 to $190,000. Now we're going to add on more and outside contracting for this service. I believe it stays at home. I believe it should stay with our staff, and I will be voting no.
Irene?
Kerry, could you elaborate a little bit about what is going to stay the same? So we're going to have the same people. We're going to still have them doing tree things. Could you explain what those tree things would be?
So the city has publicly owned trees, not only on, beg your pardon. So the city has publicly owned trees, of course, not only on the streets, but in parks as well as at public facilities and in open spaces. And there are a number of open spaces throughout San Bruno that have very large trees. Our focus has been primarily through the tree crew to provide attention to street trees. That has resulted in a lack of time spent on trees in parks, on medians, in open spaces, and at city facilities. So we will be able to devote the care and attention and time to the existing trees. The other thing that we are eager to do, and that this will allow us to do, is commence a replanting program. Many of the trees in the city's urban forest are reaching the end of their natural lifespan, and I think, as the council knows, there's been a particular type of disease that's affected a number of the pine trees in our community, and so we've had to remove, many of them have died, fire sticks in the sky, as one tree expert refers to them as. We need to start going through in a systematic way and doing removals and replanting, and do that in a way where we're not trying to do that catch up in a very short period of time so we have all these small trees throughout the community. We want to do it in a deliberate and planned fashion. And by giving us the capacity that we would achieve by contracting for the street tree work, we would be able to focus on that. In addition, I think the reason that with us this evening is not only the tree supervisor but the park supervisor is, for years we've been cannibalizing the parks staff in order to support the tree program. And this has been at the detriment, quite frankly, of the condition of the parks. And I think many of the people in the audience are from the east side of town, and that is a concern that they have repeatedly expressed, the condition of the parks. We believe, and thank you very, very much to the council for the 2 additional positions in the 17-18 budget, we believe that the parks maintenance staff is now at a level where we can provide the appropriate care and attention to the city's parks and the 2 new parks that are coming on, and the new median segment that's going to be added on San Bruno Avenue. I would hate to see us have this opportunity to now focus on the parks in a way that the community expects, and I know that the council expects, only to have to continue to divert them to support the tree program, which is a practical necessity with the way it's structured right now.
Okay, so the tree people who are tree people now are going to have tons of tree things to do. So it's not like we're shuffling them off somewhere else. Okay. Also, I'm hearing you say about the replanting. Renee and some of his staff and my beautification task force people spent a lot of time and effort during our 100th year planting 100 street trees. And you think, well, that's a lot of trees. But as you drive down many of our streets now, there are no trees anymore because they died or because they got old, they weren't replaced yet, bunches of reasons. And the more and more traffic we get, the more and more important those trees are because they help clean the air, and you all know how important that is. So putting all that aside, I could go on and on. So I think the concerns that people have of not being able to serve the city in a capacity that they want to, such as doing tree work, you're telling me that's not the case, that they will be doing tree work, and not just trimming a tree, but planting trees and organizing trees and planning tree canopy that will be here for generations.
That is correct.
Okay, so I'm kind of thinking about this, and I'm thinking of the West Coast people as coming in, like you have your gardener come in and mow your lawn, but you and your family take care of the rose bushes and the things around the side. So the lawn itself is, you know, somebody comes in, they mow it, they trim around the sides, they weed it, and that's great. But the important thing to your family is the stuff around it, the rose bushes and the pear trees and all those kinds of things. So to me, that's what this setup sounds like, and I don't see anyone losing. I see the city of San Bruno gaining many things. We'll get all our trees trimmed the way they're supposed to be. We'll get additional trees. We'll get planned trees, not just, like you said, a stick here, a stick there. We'll get the emergency things done that need to be done. My concern is not with what you've done here. I'm a little concerned that if we determine, or we all determine that we still need a truck, if we still need I'm sorry, I forgot what they're called.
Bucket truck.
Bucket truck, thank you. If we still need one, do we have the capacity? Can we put that into our capital improvement thing and say at the end of the 4 years we'll have enough money for a truck, or we can look at how that should be done in the next. We can do it in the next budget cycle, but what I'm asking is, do we have the capacity to do that?
So to the council member's question, the tree program has 3 vehicles. There are 2 bucket trucks and 1 oversized pickup truck. If you make the choice not to replace the bucket truck that's currently scheduled for replacement, that means that the tree program has 1 bucket truck and 1 large duty vehicle. On those events where Public Services needs to borrow the bucket truck, which is very, very rare, probably less than a dozen times a year, or it's in for preventative maintenance. And we've been able to address the comment that Mr. Moran made about it having some maintenance difficulties. I think we have finally addressed. We are finding the vehicle to be much more reliable. When it's in for preventative maintenance, we still have the large vehicle. And that large vehicle can be used by the tree crew along with another vehicle that is used by the Parks Maintenance Division and the chipper if they need to go out and do a small tree removal. The truck can also be used to go out and plant trees. So there is a backup vehicle, definitely not a bucket truck, but a backup vehicle that can be used by the 2-person tree crew if the current bucket truck is unavailable. In the recommendation that we're making to contract out street trees, it allows for the elimination of the second bucket truck. We do not believe that the second bucket truck is needed, and we would therefore not be requesting that appropriation as part of a future budget cycle.
Okay. Some concerns that I heard were if at the end of the 4 years we decide not to do contract out anymore, then at that time we can determine if we need a second truck. Is that?
The answer to that is yes. There's
Okay.
no problem with doing that.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else, Irene? Ken?
I think a lot's been said. I was not a former employee of the city, so but the decisions I've made in the last 2 decades have been, what staff has provided and what the results we've experienced in this city. Parks, community service, they have an immense task. This community is used by not only our residents but out-of-towners every single day and definitely every single weekend. And it amazes me how it gets turned around as if it's not being used day to day. Very proud of the department. The way it's been explained is fiscal responsibility, allowing our staff to better even increase their services in our community and actually be a little more economical with this. I mean, we have to trust something. I mean, it can't be a labor issue. It can't be they say this and we say this. I mean, I'm making a decision based on what I get. And that's how I've had to do it. And I think the record has been pretty good. So we'll vote for it, and it moves forward. If it changes, we've made changes again. But we need more people. And in 20 years, I mean, I can count on one hand, with the big recession, how many employees we've let go. And so it is not about, paring down. It's not about, getting rid of employees. It's not about replacing employees. It's about an expanded service and how we're going to take care of that in this growing community with more parks and more responsibilities.
Well, thank you. No secret to the union how I feel about it. I met with them a number of months ago and laid it out. I think it's a matter of efficiencies. Somebody talked about slippery slope, and the slope got a lot less slippery because we have a good union subcontractor that will be on board, who pays union wages, the laborers. That made that slippery slope a lot less slippery and a lot flatter for us. I think it's a matter of efficiencies. We don't need another vehicle. Our existing crew and the people that we're going to hire are going to do the work that they're supposed to do instead of hopping around here and there and working around weather schedules and other things. A dedicated West Coast arborist to do the trees just seems like the right thing to do. And it's a matter of efficiencies for this city. Efficiencies mean saving some money to do some of the things that you all came here for tonight. Some of the enforcement and some of the monies that can be saved in the general fund to do other things without the loss of any city employees. And the new employees are union too. So I'm sensitive to that, very sensitive to that, and I definitely support this proposal. So any other discussion? Would someone like to adopt a resolution? You want to say something? Go ahead.
I myself am a city employee for a different city.
Get a little closer to the mic there.
I'm a city mechanic for a different city. I repair, I maintain all the city vehicles, anything from a lawnmower to a bucket truck to a fire engine, police car. I think it'll be cheaper in the long run to buy a truck. The repairs will be a lot less than what it would be to contract the work out of the city. I back Julio up. I think we should keep the work in-house. All that, because they have the opportunity to interact with the residents and have it more on a personal level. They're able to fill their needs and have requests directly. Simple things. There's more. There's work needed to be done over here. They can put a request in. And I just think it's better for us to have a bucket truck, because there's times that, in my experience, when I work in a bucket truck, if there's any kind of damages or repairs needed, it could take up to a week, even more sometimes, when we have to get parts, things having to be fabricated, repaired. So by having another large bucket truck, it'll be as a backup instead of having to lose one truck.
All right. Thank you. You have a comment, sir?
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council. My name is Victor Gonzalez, Vice President of West Coast Arborists. And first and foremost, I want to thank you for your consideration tonight for possibly entering into a new contract with the City of San Bruno. We're familiar with City of San Bruno. We conducted the tree inventory in the mid-2000s and then again in 2010 after the explosion. I'm here tonight to first say, we're sensitive to the comments that were made. We're a family-owned business, union-based. We have about 800 employees, about 650 employees that are signatory with the laborers union, and we have long-standing employees that are certified. We have about 80 certified arborists, 150 certified tree workers through the ISA, International Society of Arboriculture, which is probably the most certified based company in California. Our primary work is working with municipalities. We contract with about 200 cities in California and about another 60 public agencies, water districts, school districts, colleges, and so forth. After reading the staff report that was presented tonight, we're pleased to learn that no jobs would be affected. Much of our success has been a collaboration in working with cities and city staff. We understand there's times when staff diminishes for whatever reason, and we serve as an extension of the city, as an extension of the city staff, and providing those services that they possibly can't meet. Some of the goals that they're trying to achieve, we're there to help out. A lot of our success comes when we're working together side by side, where they're doing the service requests, emergency response, tree planting, and we're doing the bulk work, some of the nasty removals and some of the tougher jobs because of our resources. We have about 1,000 pieces of equipment ranging from cranes, loaders, bucket trucks ranging in various sizes from 30 feet all the way up to 110 feet. So we have the means to take care of those needs that come about during the course of the operations. We have an extensive training program and customer service training program. Clearly, we're in the public right-of-way on a day-to-day basis, so it's essential for us that we make sure that our field crews are sensitive to the residents, business owners, motorists, through public notification, no parking signs, public interaction, traffic control setup, and takedown. It's essential that we do those things correctly so that we're here for the course of the contract and making sure that the residents ultimately are happy. So I want to emphasize also that we have a lot of contracts that are regionalized here. We work with the City of San Francisco, South San Francisco, Daly City, Oakland, Alameda, and some of these cities do have their own in-house crews. Again, we're working together. Oakland, San Francisco, South San Francisco, they all have their own in-house crews, and together we're accomplishing a lot of the goals that they're trying to achieve. So with that said, I thank you for the time this evening. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Anything for West Coast? Marty?
Quick. Do you have an apprentice program where for San Bruno resident that wanted to kind of pursue a possible career?
Absolutely. It's a new apprenticeship program that we're venturing out and trying to. Let me back up a little bit. There's, I don't know if you heard, there's a tree mortality issue throughout California. A lot of removals that are in need of being done. PG&E, for example, has reached out and cast their nets wide range, trying to get any and all contractors to do work. So there's an abundance of tree work that's out there. And with that, there's a shortage of employees. So what we've done is, working with the laborers union, is develop an apprenticeship program that would help new employees gain and learn some of these techniques, help them get certified as a tree worker, also as an arborist, and then eventually move on and continue growth. So yeah, we're excited about that opportunity because it hasn't been established at all. So we're kind of the pioneers in establishing that.
Good. Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Action by the council.
I'll introduce a resolution for adoption.
Vice Mayor Ibarra?
Aye.
Councilmember Marty Medina?
Aye.
Councilmember Rico Medina?
No.
Councilmember O'Connell?
Aye.
Mayor Ruane?
Aye. Thank you. Item 10E, adopt a resolution rejecting bid and authorizing staff to procure contractor pursuant to Public Contract Code Section 20167 for the pedestrian crosswalk enhancement project. Hang on, Jimmy.
Can we take a 2-second break?
The room's going to clear, so we're just going to take a two-minute break. Real
not moving. Jimmy, it's hot.
I know.
Get a truck and I'll put a hole in the wall. Feel the breeze? A breeze?
I'd like to call the meeting back to order. Once again, I'll read item 10E, adopt a resolution rejecting bid and authorizing staff to procure a contractor pursuant to Public Contract Code Section 20167 for the pedestrian crosswalk enhancement project.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. The item in front of you tonight is regards to the pedestrian crosswalk enhancement project to improve the safety for our residents in our community. After the 2010 gas pipeline explosion in the Crestmore neighborhood, the city successfully negotiated from PG&E the restitution settlement of $70 million, and the Community Foundation was subsequently created by the City Council to oversee the investment, the management, and expenditures of the funds. The foundation conducted the Community Listen campaign, and the foundation board identified near-term projects to use the restitution funds to benefit the community. And one of the projects includes the allocation of $170,000 grant to install the pedestrian safety improvements in the Bay Hill and downtown areas. However, after the funds were granted, YouTube approached the city as they wanted to improve the pedestrian safety at the intersection of Cherry and Grundy Lane, as they were anticipating additional employees to move into the 1000 Cherry building. The improvements were completed and paid solely by YouTube. Walmart.com was also in the process of coordinating with the city to identify appropriate pedestrian improvements at the mid-block crossing adjacent to the building in front of the Bay Hill Shopping Center. So since the companies were already in consideration of making these improvements at the crosswalks, staff proposed to the foundation to consider funding and installing the lighted pedestrian beacons in some of the high-use crosswalks near schools. The beacons, otherwise known as rectangular rapid flashing beacons, are commonly used at unsignalized intersections and at mid-block crossings to warn drivers of pedestrians in the crosswalk. This system is activated by a pedestrian pushing a button and then turns on LED lights that strobe similar to an emergency vehicles. The warning lights are able to catch the attention of drivers to come to a stop at a safe distance away from the crosswalk. The units to be installed as part of the project are fully solar, which eliminates the need to rely on electrical power source. The schools where staff proposed the flashing beacons be installed are at Parkside Intermediate and Portola Elementary School. Both schools have crosswalks that are heavily used and will greatly benefit having the flashing beacons to warn drivers of crossing pedestrians, especially the kids. Improvements will be made at the intersection of Niles Cedar Avenue and Niles and Redwood Avenue at Parkside, and at mid-block crossing on Amador at Portola Elementary School. The scope of work includes installing 3 flashing beacons with conduits, pole boxes, painting some red curbs and yield lines, striping, and placing new poles and signage. And to save the project design costs, the city staff completed the design in-house, and the project was advertised for bid in early July. The city received 1 bid, which was opened on July 28th from Tennyson Electric in the amount of $239,000, which is approximately 2.5 times higher than the engineering estimate of $97,000. And for cost comparison, staff included 2 flashing beacons as part of the San Mateo Avenue Water and Sewer Replacement Project, and the contractor's unit cost to install 1 set of beacons was about $30,000. So similar to the Mills Park Streetlight project, staff discussed the option to exercise the Public Contracts Code 2167 with our city attorney. Staff has also evaluated whether to recommend this project to be re-advertised for rebid. And since the city received only 1 bid, due to the current busy construction climate, there's still a possibility that a contractor may not bid on this project, or we may end up receiving another single high bid. So staff and the city attorney believes that exercising the Public Contracts Code would allow staff to obtain better cost proposals and negotiate with the contractor to obtain a lower cost for the project. So in regards to fiscal impact, there are no fiscal impact since this doesn't require any resolution to move forward with the project. But once the costs are negotiated, the staff would return to City Council to award the contract, at which time the fiscal impact of the project will be described. So that concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. And this requires a 4/5 vote, is that correct?
Oh, that's correct,
right.
Yes.
Okay. Any questions for staff? Marty?
So I guess we're getting this, we're feeling the effect of this booming construction bonanza, I guess, and the contractors are so busy that they're not bidding on things, and when they do bid on things, they're asking for a lot. I'm in favor of allowing you to proceed with this. My concern here is that we're putting in these beacons, but we're missing curb ramps at Parkside. Like, I think there's maybe like 1 or 2 entire total at Parkside, and they're like missing them everywhere else. I would like to see staff kind of do and look into that and come back, because what's the point of having the beacons and if you're not having the curb ramps? They should kind of go together, and mobilizing and allowing you to proceed with something like that. We do have Mike Cato has now been here for a while, and there's something funky about that circulation. In my opinion, there's too many crosswalks because the kids kind of scatter around instead of being channeled to less crosswalks, so it can be controlled. Putting in the curb ramps there, I think that would be something I would like to let you possibly work your magic to get a good price.
Okay. Anyone else on this project? Or action by the council?
I'll introduce the resolution.
Councilmember O'Connell?
Aye.
Councilmember Marty Medina?
Aye.
Councilmember Rico Medina?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Ibarra?
Aye.
Mayor Ruane?
Aye. I just want to say before we get to the next item, this is a project that was brought forth by the San Bruno Community Foundation, which was tasked to spend the restitution money from PG&E for the betterment of all San Bruno, and they've targeted a couple of things regarding safety going forward. In the interest of the safety for our school children, they talked about a couple of schools and then some work downtown. So I know how very disappointed they must be in the delay of this. We are disappointed too, as much, simply because of this economy, which is booming. Unfortunately, people are taking advantage of it. We saw it last week when we had a special council meeting on another situation where we had to get some electrical work done. It was $500,000 more than it should have been. So I want to let the foundation know that I know that they are disappointed in the delay, but we really appreciate what they're trying to do to carry out their efforts to make San Bruno a much better and safer place. So I just want to say that going forward. Connie?
Mr. Mayor, thank you for those comments. If I could just add that we've obviously had strong concern for the foundation's interests in this project. They are the funder, they are the sole funder for this project. And we've had close coordination and communication with the foundation. Unfortunately, this, as you mentioned, is a disappointment for them with respect to the timeline, and probably a sobering lesson in some of the complexities of the ways that cities are required to do business and the public bidding requirements and what the results sometimes can be. But that communication with the foundation has allowed us to confirm that the foundation remains firmly behind the pedestrian safety initiative. They remain committed to the delivery of hopefully 5 or 6 crossing improvements, pedestrian crossing locations that can be improved, and that their particular interest are those locations adjacent to school sites. So we look very much forward to our very talented public services director being able to work his magic in negotiating with one or more companies and bringing back to you a contract that is a little bit more cost effective, but will accomplish both the city as well as the foundation's objectives.
Great.
Thank you.
Get out your magic wand, Jimmy. Here you go. Okay. Item 10F, adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a contract with Telecommunications Engineering Associates, TEA, in an amount not to exceed $60,000 for fire station alerting system hardware, software, and service.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I'm here to talk to you about this fire station alerting system. I'm going to refer to it as FSA so I don't get too tongue-tied. But each station in San Mateo County, including San Bruno's 2 stations, has a fire station alerting system that notifies emergency responders of an incident. The origination of these alerts happens at the San Mateo County Public Communications Dispatch Center. And when the FSA receives the alert from the county center, the FSA activates. And basically what happens is this: when we get the call, the alarm, there's tones that go off. The speakers in the station, the radio speakers are turned on so they can hear the call, and the lights are illuminated, and we get the call. The existing fire station alerting system currently in use was manufactured in the late 1990s, and though it's been very reliable in the past, it's no longer manufactured, and spare parts for the system are difficult to find, and due to their age may not be considered trustworthy. Also, San Mateo County Dispatch Center will be eliminating support for the existing system in the future. They don't plan to support both the old system and the new system indefinitely. In an effort to provide emergency alerting notification efficiently and effectively, the San Mateo County Chiefs initiated a request for proposal for a replacement alerting system. Several vendor proposals were evaluated for their ability to interface with the county's dispatch system, and this new FSA alert system was designed specifically with San Mateo County fire agencies in mind. The primary concern was that it must interface with county dispatch, computer-aided dispatch system, while at the same time interface cleanly into the fire station infrastructure without causing a lot of significant modifications to station design. If approved, the new FSA hardware and software will provide significant advantages and upgrades compared to the current outdated system. It's compliant with San Mateo County's fire dispatch current and future alerting requirements, as county dispatch is in the process of updating their computer-aided dispatching system. And from a technical standpoint, the design of the system allows for seamless software updates and functional improvements and changes in display functionality in the future. For example, it'll have a digital display, and it eventually could have like a Google Maps quickest route with traffic information in there. So there's some future benefit software upgrades that are going to be potentially available. It also is designed to fully function even when the station is without power and a generator has not been started for periods of 1 to 8 hours. Approximately half of the county fire stations have been upgraded to the new system, and installation at our 2 stations is tentatively scheduled for October. For these reasons, staff recommends awarding the proposed agreement for fire station alerting system hardware and software to TEA in the amount not to exceed $60,000. And I'd be glad to answer any questions if you have any.
Any questions for Dave or action by the council?
If not, I'll go ahead and introduce the resolution for adoption.
Councilmember Rico Medina.
Aye.
Councilmember Marty Medina.
Aye.
Councilmember O'Connell.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Ibarra.
Aye.
Mayor Ruane.
Aye. And our final item this evening is item G, adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a construction contract with Hardy Pipelines, Inc. for the Crestmore Canyon Sewer Replacement Project in the amount of $244,680, approving a construction contingency of $50,000 in the total project budget in the amount of $331,380.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. Before I present the project, I'd like to briefly provide an overview of the status of the various sewer capacity improvement projects we have going on here in the city. So over the past couple of years, staff came to City Council to award or close out various sewer projects, and we're making great progress working towards to meet the regulatory deadline of July 2018 set under the settlement agreement with Baykeepers. So here's the table that shows 14 pipeline and pump station projects which staff is working towards to complete. As shown in the status, the city completed 4 construction projects. 1 project is currently under construction, which is the Spyglass pump station. The remaining projects are either have been awarded or for construction or under design. And staff is anticipating to bring to council for award of these construction contracts, most of these projects by the end of this year or early next year. So the item in front of you tonight is regards to the award of the construction contract for the Crestmore Canyon Sewer Replacement Project. The project is located within the Crestmore Canyon, approximately between Concord Way to Engvall Court. Right here, that shows the project limits. There's an existing 8-inch sewer line that has experienced sewer overflows in the past during wet weather periods, and this project will upsize the existing 8-inch pipeline to 12 inches to alleviate capacity issues. The pipeline depth is approximately 8 to 10 feet deep. The other scope of work includes installation of new manholes, bypass pumping of existing sewer flows during construction, disposal of excavated materials, stormwater pollution prevention, dust control, and site cleanup. The project was advertised in the San Mateo County newspaper at the end of June. The city received 7 bids during the bid opening on July 21st. The contractors and their bid prices are listed in the staff report. The bid prices range from approximately $245,000 to $713,000. The city engineer's estimate is about $356,000. The lowest bid was received from Hardy Pipelines in the amount of about $244,860, which was $110,000 less than the engineer's estimate. In comparison, the comparison in bid prices between Hardy Pipelines and the next lowest bidder, Express Plumbing, was approximately $200,000. So staff contacted Hardy Pipelines to confirm whether they made any errors in their bid proposals and requested them to submit a letter confirming that their bid is accurate. The city received a letter from Hardy Pipeline stating that they reviewed their bid proposal and are confident with their bid prices as quoted. And staff is recommending the project to be awarded to Hardy Pipelines, as the company completed numerous pipeline projects for agencies such as San Francisco, Daly City, and Berkeley. Based on our experience, the firm meets the qualification to perform the work on this project. And since the project will be within the canyon, there will be minimal impacts to the residents and the businesses or within the public right-of-way. However, the construction of the path along the canyon during construction needs to be closed during the duration of the construction hours. Roadway closures are not anticipated as a traffic control, but the city will install traffic control signs along Enville Court to warn passing motorists about construction vehicles entering and exiting onto the roadway. Noise and dust are expected during work hours, but we'll try to minimize that as much as we can. As for fiscal impact, the CIP budget for this project includes an allocation of about $520,000 for the sewer main replacement project to complete the design, bid, and construction phases. And in order to save project cost, staff designed the project in-house as well. The city staff will also be performing the construction management and inspection for this project. And the total project cost is estimated to be approximately $330,000, which is within the available carryover balance of $500,000 remaining in the project budget. This concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, any questions? Marty?
Yes. First of all, congratulations for designing it in-house. I mean, that's great. The other thing that threw me off a little bit, so are we back to Public Works instead of Public Services?
Yes.
Okay. I always hated public services. It was always so confusing, and it's Public Works, that's what we do. I would like to see the bid summary to kind of, just out of curiosity, to see what is it that can you share with me what you think, why it's so low? Is it the preliminary foot price? Is mobilization, or?
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to look at the actual bid tabulation, but I can share that with you if you're interested. Yeah.
So currently, I've walked that a few times, and there is a pipe that's at surface, and so we're going to put that 8 feet deep.
Not that pipe. We'll have another. The new pipe will be installed through using trenchless construction, pipe bursting.
Okay.
It will be pipe bursted from 8 inches to 12 inches, and that pipe that you see, the PVC pipe, will be removed.
Okay. All right. Looks great. The weather, I mean, it's dirt there, so when are they going to start? I'm sorry if it's in here.
I anticipate I would say maybe 3 months from now, after all the contracts signed and the submittals.
It's going to start in 3 months.
Yes.
And the allowed time,
I believe it's 90 days, if I recall. Yes.
Okay. And what's the type of pipe? HDPE?
HDPE, correct.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Anyone else? Action by the council?
I'll introduce the resolution.
Councilmember O'Connell?
Aye.
Councilmember Marty Medina?
Aye.
Councilmember Rico Medina?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Ibarra?
Aye.
Mayor Ruane.
Aye. Report of commissions, boards, and committees. There aren't any. Comments from council members?
Through
Anyone?
the chair,
Irene?
I have a question. Connie, we did the Joint Planning Commission and Council meeting, and that was filmed, correct? I mean, are we going to rebroadcast it at any time?
So the Joint Planning Commission City Council study session was not videotaped, it was audio taped.
Oh, audio taped, okay. Thank you.
Ken?
Through the chair, I just want to say that the concerts in the park are almost halfway done. They've been very popular, and we still have 6 more weeks, 6 more Fridays to go. And I just want to remind staff that there's a lot of attendees that are staying past 8 o'clock, and it is getting darker. So if we can take care of what we started last year and probably turn on Diamond 3 lights to let people just still socialize and be able to safely pack up their stuff and get home. But, really great, very nothing but positive comments with the concerts.
Anyone else? Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I think I missed the point of Councilwoman's comment, and if I could just have one moment. The information is not available on videotape, but we are encouraging public participation in the development of the Bay Hill Specific Plan, which was the subject of the joint study session. Information is available on our website and through our Community Development Department, and we encourage any interested person to participate in the community meetings that are coming up. And I believe the first one is August 30th, 6:30 here. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Closed session, we had it before the meeting, and this meeting is adjourned until September 12th right here.